Saying anything new about Zuko's character arc throughout Avatar: The Last Airbender is quite difficult because it is one of the most frequently discussed topics about the series. It's a journey from accepting the reductionist narratives given to him by his tyrannical and abusive father to being more openly skeptical of these overarching narratives, more willing to question them and pick them apart and understand just how false and flawed they are. It is a journey from relying on violence to fighting for peace, from buying into nationalist and imperialist propaganda to being willing to fight for a more just and open society, from Zuko openly tying his sense of self-worth to his honor, by which he always means the approval of his father, the Fire Lord, to having a sense of self-worth that's determined by whether his actions measure up to his own sense of what is moral and right. In a book I wrote, The Philosophy of Avatar, I compare Zuko's journey to the light with that experienced by St. Augustine in his Confessions. Zuko's conversion is not to Christianity, and it is not a didactic conversion to any singular system of beliefs, but like Augustine, he has a kind-hearted and caring mother who sets before him a vision of what is moral and true and compassionate, and he strays from that vision throughout his early life, and he must fight to return to that vision in a world that prioritizes strength and power and domination and conquest and wealth over compassion and understanding and basic moral goodness and kindness. Like in the Confessions, the richness of the conflict does not come from what is right being ambiguous and uncertain. In both stories, there is a clear sense of the right path as opposed to the path of greed, avarice, ease, and cruelty. The tension comes from struggling to choose that correct path, and one's entire sense of identity is wrapped up in the incorrect and false path. The false path is easier. The false path provides wealth and opportunity and professional gain. Turning away from that path and abandoning one's entire sense of identity and one's entire sense of what one should believe in causes an existential crisis that should not be downplayed or taken lightly. In too many cases, the audience in these kinds of stories, when there's a clear good option and a clear immoral option, feel so superior because they know what is the right option and the character does not. They view themselves as being superior to the character, and they do not heed the great maxim offered by Horace in his satires, that being quid rides, mutato nomine et de te fabula narrator. I'm guessing most of you do not understand Latin. I don't really understand it aside from a few key phrases. So I'll say that the translation of that is, why are you laughing? Aside from the name, this is your story as well. It's easy to separate us from the characters we watch because we, as the viewers, exist on a privileged plane. We get a clear view of the character dynamics working in the story we're reading, whether it's fictional or non-fictional. Whereas when we're dealing with our own lives, there are all these other influences and stakes and circumstances that occlude us from seeing what is right and from choosing what is right, even if we do, to some degree, sense it. We want to believe that there is a major distance between ourselves and the characters we watch, because if we feel that sense of moral superiority, it precludes us from having to do the hard work of seeing how the flaws of these characters reflect our own flaws and our own shortcomings. The best art lucidly portrays why people do not always make the moral choice, even if they know it is the moral choice. Making that choice requires commitment and discipline. It requires, to a certain extent, disavowing all immediate pleasures and joys and luxuries in order to pursue some higher moral truth. Some of what Zuko or Augustine turn away from we might dismiss as trivial, such as luxury, worldly success, acclaim, fame, all of these things that we, at least in theory, want to say are not as important as following the path that we believe to be just. But how about our relationships with other people? Those relationships are so often tied up in the world we want to leave behind. Leaving that dark and corrupt path often involves being isolated from those we cared about and finding ourselves the victim of their scorn. The essay on Zuko in my book delves further into this contrast between pursuing ideals in an abstract sense and being able to make choices that reflect those ideals in a more concrete way. I'm bringing all this up because it is important for looking at what I believe is one of the most important scenes in Avatar that really demonstrates Zuko's uncomfortability with the life he has chosen for himself of opulence and acclaim, and in turn, Zuko really shows his willingness to at least turn away from that life, despite all the luxuries it offers him, and for the same reason that we see in the Confessions, because it's unsatisfying, because what good does it do to gain the world and lose one's soul? What good does it do to have what you believe you wanted, the support of those whose respect you hold highly, if it means going against one's own personal moral principles? Read the book if you haven't, but I mostly bring it up because this comparison between Zuko and Augustine is interesting for looking at Zuko's eruption at the end of the beach, when he's finally cathartically willing to reflect on his own flaws and failings. He's willing to admit that he's not happy. He believes he should be happy, but he's not, though he does not know what the right choice is. And though he is not at all willing at this point to leave behind his life of luxury and acceptance in the Fire Nation and abandon his entire sense of self, his entire value system, which has been predicated on wanting what he now has, he knows that he's not happy. He knows that he will never be happy as long as he continues down the path he is currently on. The whole mini-plot with Zuko hiring Combustion Man is a result of Zuko believing wrongly that he's unsatisfied because he wants to kill the Avatar because he knows the Avatar is not really dead. I mean, that's a part of why he's unhappy, because he knows that he might be discovered, but that does not really drill into the depths of his wider malaise, which owes to the fact that he has made a choice that is not aligned with the values he now holds. Throughout his journeys across the Earth Kingdom in Season 2, he has seen the poverty and strife of the ordinary people of the Earth Kingdom. He knows that it has been caused by the war and the Fire Nation army that he has so enthusiastically and uncritically supported in the past. His convictions change, and it is true that this shift is not enough to stop the alluring call of Azula from convincing him. She offers him what he wanted: his place on the throne, his father's acceptance, the sense that he is serving the Fire Nation in a noble and majestic way. But because his values have shifted, he will never be satisfied with that vision of what he believed he'd wanted. Avatar emphasizes, in subtle but frequent ways, the differences between our ideals that we set up for ourselves and what we can only learn by ourselves by watching those ideals fail to a certain extent. Iroh, for example, believed in the Fire Nation's mission of conquest and domination until his son died, and he realized how pointless and destructive these ideals were. He had to find out for himself that the Fire Nation's ideals were not satisfying for him, and so does Zuko. Iroh gives Zuko a lot of advice, but Iroh knows that Zuko will have to discover for himself what he really wants, and this is indeed what happens. Like Augustine, he has to confront not just what he abstractly believes is right, but how viscerally, palpably unsatisfied he is by choosing to pursue fame and power and status and all the things that his society prizes. Zuko grows to understand how shallow his old ideals were, and this break from those old values in the beach, this statement of profound dissatisfaction with the choice he made, is one of the most important scenes in his journey toward deciding that he cannot abide by his decision to stay with the Fire Lord, even though that's everything he wanted, and that he has to make a different choice if he ever wants to attain the level of satisfaction that he's really yearning for. So thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can, and you want to see more videos like this. Keep watching Avatar: The Last Airbender. If there are any videos about it that you want me to do, please tell me in the comments. Although, make sure you at first look through my back catalog to make sure I haven't already covered it. I have indeed made a lot of Avatar videos. Anyway, tune in soon for my next analysis. It will be coming soon. Promise to that. Thank you all again. Adios, comrades.